Good evening. There are fears bird flu has crossed the border into South Australia, with urgent testing underway tonight after 2 seabirds were found dead at Fowlers Bay on the state's west coast.
Hayden Nelson joins us now in the studio. Hayden, what's happened to the birds?
Well, they've been taken to a testing lab in Glenside, along with a pelican that PIRSA officers found dead nearby. Local Eyre Peninsula whale cruise operator Rod Keogh discovered the birds on his morning walk and moved them, he says, to stop other birds pecking them and potentially spreading disease. He called the National Bird Flu Task Force hotline, and in less than 2 hours, PIRSA arrived at the remote coastal town on the west coast. Officers weren't taking any chances with the H5 flu.
Full chemical suit, gloves, rubber gloves taped at the sleeves, boot protectors, full face protection, a respirator. We have to be hyper vigilant. You know, there's so much at stake here for not only our marine animals, but for us as a state.
Now, this discovery was made yesterday morning, but the Premier hasn't made any mention of the birds being found at 2 media conferences since then. A positive result in both birds would take the national case tally from 2 jumping to 4 following a similar discovery at Esperance in WA. This was enough to send chicken coops in the west into lockdown. Authorities are desperately hoping that can be avoided here. Will?
All right, thank you, Hayden. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has revealed a nose wheel failure may have caused a fatal plane crash at Parafield in April this year. The twin-engine plane slammed into a hangar while on a training flight, killing 2 pilots and injuring 9 people on the ground.
The heart-stopping moment that sent shockwaves through the aviation community. ATSB investigators revealing what may have caused the fatal Parafield crash.
A nose wheel actuator rod, that is, a component in the front of the aircraft, fractured at some point in the accident sequence,
causing control issues.
There is the potential of it being rudder input controls, which probably would not be instinctive to pilots.
The pair reporting an engine failure just 27 seconds into the training flight. Today's preliminary report triggering a global safety alert for the Diamond DA-42 aircraft.
Given the significance of the fatigue fracture in a critical aircraft component,
the plane's left engine was also not at full power upon impact, suggesting
an action that is consistent with dealing with an actual or assumed engine failure.
Both the pilot and his instructor were killed, with 9 others injured on the ground.
The impact forces and the post-impact fire were catastrophic.
A first look inside the hangar reveals 3 other aircraft were caught up in the wreckage.
Trying to determine what was what in that hangar was very challenging.
With no cockpit recordings or any way to know exactly what the pilot said or did, investigators will now break down the plane's left engine to paint a clearer picture of what went so terribly wrong. Instructor Robert Hoyle's heartbroken family releasing a statement saying he dedicated his life to aviation and trusts the full findings will serve as his lasting and final contribution, helping ensure that such a tragic event is never repeated. A final report is expected to take up to 18 months. Madison Stanley, 7 News.
The state's police union has escalated tensions with SAPOL's leadership, passing a historic motion of no confidence in Commissioner Grant Stevens and his deputy, Linda Williams.
Sarah Cumming is live with all the details. Sarah, the vote means thousands of officers have lost trust in the pair.
It does, Will, and the president of the Police Association, Wade Burns, says this is a South Australian first and shows the level of discontent. Now, a meeting of delegates was held today who represent 95% of sworn members, and they passed that motion earlier today. They cited a range of reasons, including a failed policing model, which has resulted in less proactive capacity and more reactive demand. But Mr Burns stopped short of calling for the Commissioner and his deputy to resign.
Today's vote is not about resignation. Today's vote is about accountability. It is about the majority of the SAPOL workforce having their say and speaking up.
Now, this afternoon, the Commissioner released a statement. He admits there is work to be done, but says he's disappointed because it is not reflective of the daily feedback he receives through his constant interaction with officers on the front line. Adding, history shows that better outcomes are achieved for SAPOL and members when there is a professional and collaborative approach. Regrettably, this does not appear to be the union's current approach. And will the Premier, Peter Malinauskas, says both the Commissioner, Grant Stevens, and his Deputy, Linda Williams, have his full support.
Thank you, Sarah. The second man's been arrested accused of bashing a rideshare driver at Salisbury Downs. The victim's dash cam was rolling as he was set upon on the Salisbury Highway last Sunday night. He says it was because he had refused to speed. A 22-year-old from Peterborough and a 41-year-old from Elizabeth Vale will appear in court over the assault next month.
Police are investigating what caused a woman to crash her SUV into a house at Torrensville last night. Police and MFS crews were called to Hardy's Road around 10:30 after the 64-year-old's car ploughed through a brush fence and into the front veranda. The woman from Underdale escaped with minor injuries.
Pauline Hanson's explanation of monoculture has lit a fire under the Albanese government. The Prime Minister has slammed One Nation's vision as nonsense and criticised the opposition for not having one.
One Nation wants an Australia with one culture.
Japan has a monoculture. So what's wrong with Australia having monoculture?
And what is that monoculture?
We're multiracial, but at the end of the day, we must look at being Australians. And instead of all these different little individual groups who believe in their own cultures.
Slashing migrant numbers, making English language mandatory, restricting the number of mosques, centring on Judeo-Christian values.
Do we really want to see Sharia law? Do we want to see multiple marriages? Do we want to see these gangs getting around our streets with machetes? That's not the Australian way of life.
Modern Australia is not a monoculture, and it never has been.
Inside the Parliament,
this is a pining for a time that has never existed.
Insisting Australia has been multicultural since British settlement.
The First Fleet had people in chains and people were in charge. Had Protestants and Catholics.
Coalition leader Angus Taylor asked several times if he supported a monoculture.
You explain to me what you mean by that. You see, there's all these vague words running around.
The government accusing him of chasing voters who are abandoning the Liberals for One Nation.
This rubbish, playing footsie with the monoculture language being pushed around by the One Nation party.
What do voters think of a monoculture?
What do you mean by that?
Told it's a One Nation policy.
Pauline Hanson, good on you, mate.
As the government claims victory on its central budget bill, the capital gains tax and negative gearing changes set to pass the Senate on Thursday with the Greens backing.
In return, the government agreeing to another 8-week inquiry into the NDIS cuts.
We've managed to stop the NDIS bill passing the Parliament this fortnight.
But it's likely it will pass in August once the inquiry's over, with coalition support. The tax bill going straight into the Senate and Pauline Hanson going straight for the jugular, using parliamentary privilege to question the timing of Anthony Albanese's sale of his Sydney investment property in 2024 to buy his beachfront home at Copacabana.